This is TLV1.
The Tel Aviv Review.
Hello and welcome to the Tel Aviv Review program dedicated to the word, to the thought and to debate. I'm your host Gilad Halpern, and every week I'll be engaging in close encounters of the intellectual kind with writers, researchers, documentary filmmakers, or simply people who have done something to make our lives a tad more interesting. I am now joined here in the studio by Dr. Ephraim Chamiel. He's a lecturer and researcher of Jewish thought in the modern era, formerly at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He's also the author of The Middle Way, the Emergence of Modern Religious Trends in 19th-Century Judaism, that has recently been published in English by Academic Studies Press. Hello, Effie, and welcome to the Tel Aviv Review.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for coming. So the modern religious trends in the title of your book, correct me if I'm wrong, is Code for Modern Orthodoxy, that sought to reconcile tradition and modernity in a Jewish context, of course. So can you tell us a bit about the backdrop against which it emerged?
Okay, first, the three philosophers that I'm dealing with are not all of them modern Orthodox. That's why I called my book Modern Religious and not Modern Orthodox. For example, Shadal, to my opinion, was not an Orthodox. So we are talking about observant Jews, which I call those who are religiously committed, that wanted to combine modernity with the Torah and mitzvot.
How do you define modern orthodoxy then?
Modern orthodoxy are those people who are considered to be orthodox. And orthodox, if you asking the 19th century philosophers, orthodox means that you believe in Torah from heaven, and not only the written Torah, but also the oral Torah is from heaven.
All right.
So Shadal, for sure, did not agree with that, so he was not, to my opinion, an Orthodox. But I'm talking about those who are committed to mitzvot and Torah, okay, and who believes that the written Torah is from heaven. And those are the people that I'm dealing with. And the background to this phenomena is what happened in the 18th century. The 18th century... due to rationalism and due to philosophy of the rationalism, and after Mendelssohn, we have the Haskalah movement in the end of 18th century in Judaism.
The so-called Jewish Enlightenment.
Correct. And because of that, and secularization in the Jewish community, the falling apart of the walls by emancipation, and those kind of things, what happened was that the modernity suddenly knocked on the doors of those rabbis and Jewish scholars, and they realized that there is a danger to the community. If they will not combine modernity with Torah, they might lose their communities and the people.
As indeed happened to many, because two reactions to this turn of events was, on the one hand, complete secularism. I mean, people who are rejecting Jewish religion and tradition altogether. And on the other hand, I would say ultra-Orthodoxy, people who reject modernity altogether and stick to... I mean, you have to choose sides. Many people thought that you had to choose sides at the end of the day. So those people who sought to combine modernity and tradition... How did they do it? Because at first glance, you would think that they are mutually exclusive, rationalism and religious belief.
Okay, this was the main problem facing those philosophers, because I called the trend or what happened that you have on the right hand, you have as you said, the ultra-Orthodox, and even the Orthodox. The Orthodox themselves are on the right side. These people believe that everything is from heaven and we cannot change anything, and everything new is forbidden. Okay, like Khatam Sofer. And as you said, on the left hand, we don't have so much secularity on the 19th century that I'm dealing with. But we have reform, which started at the beginning of the 19th century and had a lot of influence. We have Bible criticism, okay? And we have the starting of secularity.
But Bible criticism, you mean those who took a more critical approach to the Bible, and it's not just the word of God, but something that was a social construct?
Not a construct. It was written by human beings and not by God, and therefore you can analyze it as you analyze every human text, and that's what they did. And they came to many conclusions regarding who wrote what.
But in order to be religious, you still have to believe to a certain extent that the scriptures are the words of God.
Correct. So these people that I'm dealing with, okay, Shadal, Rashar Hirsch, and Maharatz Chayes, they believed in Torah min hashamayim, the written Torah, at least. And two of them, Hirsch and Chayes, believed also in Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral Torah, also from heaven. But Shadal didn't. But the problem they were facing was that they wanted to embrace modernity, okay? And they want to keep on, they're attached to the Torah. So they had to find a middle way. That's why I'm calling my book The Middle Way. Yeah. These people walked in a middle way, and each one of them has his own way of combination.
Right. I'd like you to elaborate about this for now. The striking thing about these three men, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, Samuel David Luzzatto, and Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Chayes, is that they were contemporaries. They worked pretty much around the same time, the mid-19th century, beginning to mid-19th century, but completely separately.
Correct.
In three different countries, in three different cultural realms. Can you tell us a bit about what are the main themes of each one, and where do they overlap, where do they differ?
Okay. Maharatz Chayes, I will call him more fundamentalist than the other two. And he was a rationalist, and he follows the Rambam. As you know, in the 19th century, there was a swift from rationalism to romanticism, and Shadal and Hirsch were romanticism, but Maharatz Chayes was still a rationalist, and he follows the Rambam. And the way that he combines the two was some kind of following the 18th century philosophy that actually we have to look to see two sources here, okay, Torah and reason. And as long as they work together, it's fine. But the minute we have a conflict between the two, we have to follow the Torah. This is the way of Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, that when there is a conflict, you go after the Torah, and you say that there is a problematic with what the science and the reason says, and we have to stick to what Revelation tells us.
Right.
This was the way Chayes looks at it. Rashar Hirsch was more complicated. He also thought that usually when you have a conflict between the two, between reason and the Torah, you have to go after Torah. But there are situations where science is already proven, and you can't neglect the proofs. So when there is such a proof, like for example,
the theory of the evolution.
First of all, how many years is the world existing?
Right.
Okay, and secondly, what about evolution?
Yeah.
So the more proofs that you have, it makes it problematic to follow revelation. So in this case, he says we will have to go after the Rambam and say that we have to try to explain what Revelation says. So if there is something in the Torah that contradicts, we'll have to explain it.
So we shouldn't take it at face value.
Right. But so Rav Hirsch is not coherent about the way he looks at it. Usually he goes after the revelation, but when there is a conflict proven, then you make commentary on the Torah to say that it's not what it says, it's not what it looks, and you explain it. Now Shadal was even more complicated. He developed his opinion through the years. To begin with, he thought like the Rambam, and later on, he decided that these two areas are completely different. The Torah is dealing with one issue, is relationship between man and God, and science and reason, they are dealing with what's between man and nature, and man. So it's two separate things. But later on, he developed what I call the double truth. The double truth position says that there are two sources of truth, and they are contradicting each other, and we have to live with it. Okay?
Is that what you're saying, that he's not an Orthodox per se? Because for him, the truth of the Torah is not all-encompassing and doesn't apply to every aspect of life?
To him, the Torah's target is not to tell us philosophical truth, but to make us good people. So it has a moral, ethical purpose. Therefore, you cannot find philosophic truth in the Torah. So the Torah and science might contradict, and we have to live with it. It's not...
Okay, I would like to ask you, according to your estimate, does all this hold water? It seems to me like they're flip-flopping and trying to find a way out of the challenging questions of the real crux of the contradiction here.
That's because your point of view is from the outside.
Right.
They didn't feel anything. They didn't feel that they are apologetics. We, from outside, we can judge them and we can say, well, they were all apologetics, more or less. To my opinion, Shadal was less apologetics because he was facing the real problematic, and he agreed that there is a real conflict. Okay, as we call it, there is a stira, contradiction between science and philosophy and reason and what the Torah tells us. He didn't want to go after the illusion that everything can be solved easily. Therefore, he said, well, there is a contradiction. This is not apologetics. There is a contradiction, but we have to live with it. And in the sphere of God, it combines.
Right.
But our mind, because we are in a flesh body, our brain is actually flesh, and it's subject to lust and to egoism. So we can't judge 100% purely. Therefore, we have to live with it and understand that we have limits and to live with the contradiction.
I want to go back to it in a second, but ask you first, why did you choose those three philosophers in particular, and how do they differ from, for example, another famous example, Moses Mendelssohn, who himself dealt with his issues of how to combine the modern lifestyle and Jewish tradition? Well,
I looked at Mendelssohn as pre-modern era, okay, pre-modern new era, because at his time, the community was all observant Jews. There was very small secularity in his time. So he was a wall breaker, okay, and the way he looks at it, he says it's two separate. Like Shadal, the younger, he thought it's two separate issues. No problem. We have philosophy, we have religion. It's two separate issues, two different subjects. But I wanted to know what happened in the 19th century after Mendelssohn, when we started to have trends in Judaism. Trends in Judaism started in the 19th century. Right. They started with the Reform movement, and then as a rejection, we have the Orthodoxy, the ultra-Orthodoxy as a counterbalance. And then we have the middle way, those people who went in the middle and wanted to combine. Of course, they created the big tents because they have push from both sides, and they have to keep going in the middle way. The reason why I chose them was because when I grew up, I wanted to understand my sources, where I'm coming from.
That brings me exactly to my next question. And I'd like you to elaborate on it first, but let me put it to you. Do the themes that emerge from Hirsch, Luzzatto, and Chayes, are they still the underlying themes of, I'd call it, modern Orthodoxy, just as an easy way out, as an easy solution? Are they still the underlying themes of this trend, this current in Judaism?
I believe yes. I believe that these three people are the basics that we in the 20th and 21st centuries are following in their steps. All philosophers who came in the 20th and 21st centuries, like Rav Soloveitchik, and Rav Kook and Hermann Cohen and Rosenzweig and Leibovich and others, they are all following in their footsteps, okay, and in starting to understand the way they are going to combine it. Leibovich, for example, believes that these are two separate issues. They cannot contradict because they deal with different subjects. Okay, Rav Kook thinks that we have two polars. Okay, that we have to in dialectic situation. Okay, and man is trying to combine them together and mostly fails. And Rav Soloveitchik had the same idea, but all of them knew that there is a problem here between reason and Torah and revelation, and they were fighting, they were quarreling between themselves how to combine it.
But even more so, I mean, what we're talking about here is really the effort to combine modernity and Torah and the religion. But what about the advent of the postmodern age? Has it brought about new challenges to these people and their followers?
I'm not dealing with the modern, with the postmodern
what
situation.
Is it, according to your experience as someone who's coming from that community and from that current?
Okay, listen, I'm dealing in my book with other problems like between other religions like Muslims and Christianity. How was the relations to them? How is the relations to the woman in Judaism? Okay, how do we relate to Bible criticism? How do we relate to scholar studies? Okay, secular studies in our curriculum in the religious schools. All these problems continue also now in the 21st century.
Right.
So now we have to deal with a new problem, which is the postmodernity, which tells us really that there is no truth at all.
Yeah.
We cannot focus on any truth. Each group has its own narrative, and there is no actual real truth. This is a real problem for Orthodoxy in particular. So this is another problem. So Shadal, for example, he was the first in the 19th century to say that there are two truths. There is the truth of revelation and the truth of the Torah.
Yeah.
And they are contradicting each other. So he is forecasting what's going to happen in the 21st century, or actually in the mid of the 20th century, when we have postmodernity, which says to us there are several truths. You can't tell someone that he is false, and you have the right in yourself. So you have to be more modest.
Right. I'd like to ask you a question about the fact that it took place within Judaism, because Judaism has proven very resilient to challenges from the outside. It has always found a way to reinvent itself. Do you see this as perhaps a particularly Jewish phenomenon? I wouldn't like you to go into any kind of comparison with other religions, but would you say that this modern turn is a particularly Jewish development?
I think that it's more Jewish because Judaism is built on dispute. If you look at Judaism from the time of the Mishnah and later on the Talmud and commentators, they are always fighting each other. There is always a dispute, a machloket. And
Dissent,
and,
yes.
and the scholars did not agree, okay? And this is a basic for the Judaism to develop. The other religions, to my opinion, are more strict. There are no many disputes among them, but still, I believe that modernity faces them as well, and they had also to face it and to find solutions to the situation. I believe that if they look at my book, they will see that Judaism also reflects what happened in Judaism in the 19th century, reflects what happened in their religions at the same time. It has this. We face the same problems.
Right. Effie, I'd like to ask you this now. Are you convinced? Do you think that the answers that those three philosophers, as well as the others, the later ones that you listed, did they provide convincing answers that might prove a solid ground for this kind of modern religious trend within Judaism to persist?
My opinion is not important here. Okay, what I think is not important here. What's important is that if you believe in God, it gives you some explanations and some ways to go on. The 20th century and the 21st century are less apologetics and facing situation more openly. But if you believe in God, then the question is, do you believe that God reveals himself or not? If you believe that God reveals himself, then you really have a problem. And these people are giving you some ways, and the 20th century philosophy also gives you some ways. If you don't believe in revelations, then you don't have a problem, because then the Torah is human made, and everything is human made. So we have disputes about what human is doing. If you don't believe in God, then you don't have problems at all.
Yeah.
Because some people believe there is a God, but he doesn't intervene. This is deism.
Yes.
Okay, and so you tell me what you believe, and I tell you where to look.
All right. That's a good place to end this interview. Dr. Ephraim Chamiel, lecturer and researcher of Jewish thought in the modern era, and author of the newly published book, The Middle Way, The Emergence of Modern Religious Trends in 19th Century Judaism. Thank you very much for coming in today.
You're welcome. Thank you.